What's up, Mira here. In this guide we'll go over Akkhan Condemn build for Season 16. Before we continue, just a quick reminder, if you have not subscribed to the channel, please do so, it helps a lot, and yeah. This build has been popular, well, for a long time, and it hasn't changed at all for Season 16, but other builds have gotten buffed, so other sets are now pretty competitive with this one. So if you've been playing this, maybe if you wanna, well, have a breath of fresh air and try something new, maybe check out the other build guides for other sets, and yeah. And for you veteran players out there, the only change for this set is that for Season 16 we get a Ring of Royal Grandeur as a permanent buff. This means that we have plus, well, not plus, I guess, minus requirement for set, so we don't have to have all the 6 pieces for this to work. And as you can see, I have 5 pieces of Akkhan, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I don't have Ring of Royal Grandeur in cube or here, as you can see. So we basically have that all the time, and you don't need Ring of Royal Grandeur in this season, so you won't be farming it. And once you know that, the only change that you can make is simply throw in some other item, and I think the best thing to throw in is Hexing Pants of Mr, and that is because this build is on the move almost all the time, and since Hexing Pants will give you resource generation and damage increase while you're moving, but decrease it while you're standing still, and since you won't be standing still a lot, basically it's 25 more damage for you guys. And that's kinda all if you're a veteran player. However, if you're not, please stay, I will explain everything about this build. So, as I've mentioned, you should have 5 pieces of Akkhan set. Now, some pieces are interchangeable, but the setup that I have here on screen is the best setup for the end game, in my opinion. So, before I kinda get into which order should you try to get them, let's go over what Akkhan set does in the first place. So, Akkhan set is, well, it boosts your accurate champion by quite a lot, and it makes it really OP, to be honest, guys. Like, this makes it really tanky, and it does a lot of damage when you have the whole set. For this season, that's 5 set pieces. And with 2 set bonus, you will have reduced cost of your abilities by 50%. With 4 pieces, you will have a reduced cooldown for accurate champion, and the 6 piece is of course the best, and you will have a whole bunch more damage while you have your accurate champion up, and you will have decrease damage by 50%. So more damage and take less damage. And now what does the accurate champion does? Well, it gives you even more damage and wrath regeneration, which is again really good. But it has a pretty heavy cooldown, so it has a 90-second cooldown. So with the set bonus, so if you look at this, we have 50% cooldown reduction from this, so it's going to be 45 seconds. So that is going to be 25 seconds downtime, then we can have it up again. So to have it up all the time, which is what we want, we need to have some cooldown reduction, and that's why we are going to start with the head. That's why I have my mouse cursor over the head piece first, because the head piece can have you can socket the white gem into it. It's going to give you reduced cooldown of all skills by 12.5%, and if you have Leoric's crown in a cube, you will have that double, so it's going to be 25%. And the cool thing is you can roll at Kadala for 2 helms at the same time, so you can get one or the other. If you happen to get really good Leoric crown with 100%, definitely use it. Then you would go and put Hexing Pants into a cube and use the Akkhan Pants. That's what you need to do if that happens to you, but most likely you won't roll the best Leoric crown, so then go for the Akkhan Helm and Leoric in a cube. And with that out of the way, let's kind of go over some stats that you want to have on your headpiece. So strength, crit is really good to have, but if you can't get it, some helm with life per hit then is good. If you happen to roll that, vitality is also okay. You can swap vitality and strength on gear, so if you need more vitality to survive, it's okay to have vitality on your gear. Then you go all strength into your paragons, and then basically try to balance it out. If you happen to die a lot, then throw in some vitality on paragons. But if you have a lot of vitality on your gear, then throw some strength into your paragons. Paragons are a pretty good way to balance out your stats. And I have here Call the Sun, but that's something that you will have to farm a lot for. And yeah, like if you can get it, throw it in there. But yeah. This is something that I don't really think I will achieve in the season. That needs a lot of farming, and that's for some of you guys that play a lot of Diablo, but I don't think I could do Call the Sun on all the pieces during the one season. That's out of my reach, I think, and getting this kind of gear. But you should strive to get the best gear that you can, so yeah. The second two pieces that you should try to get are gloves and shoulders, and that is because those give you cooldown reduction, and as I already said, you need 56%, so going for the pieces that you know that can have cooldown reduction is no-brainer, so yeah. For shoulders, you will want to get some resistances. Resistances are also important, so try to get those. And you can also roll increase condemn damage. That's our main skill for dealing damage. We still haven't gotten to that yet, but you can get increased condemn damage on shoulders, cooldown reduction, and now chance to deal area damage on hit is really good, but only if you have enough paragon points. So if you farmed a lot, and you can even throw in Call the Sun and you can get this kind of shoulders, definitely get area damage. But if you're early in the season, go for strength. It's going to give you more damage than area damage. Area damage is for end gear that you can get. But I have it here so you can see where you should get it if you get to that point. Next, we have hands. So here, again, cooldown reduction, you have to have it. Now you want to get crit damage and crit chance. And if, as I said for shoulders, same applies here, get strength early in the season, and if you farm a bit more, maybe go for increase area damage later on down the road. And then for a chest piece, this is pretty easy to get, like it doesn't have too much insane stats. It usually rolls pretty good. You should try to get Condemn on it. But again, if you are early in the season, don't stress about it, just try to get all the pieces first. And then we have our Amulet. We want to get Holy Skills crit damage and crit chance on it, and that is really hard to get. You should probably try to get crit damage and crit chance before holy damage. So if you roll strength, crit damage, crit chance, it's okay. If you can get something like this, then oh man, that's pretty good for you. I will be envious. Okay, so we gone over the set piece, the Akkhan. Now let's go over the damage dealing side of things. So for damage dealing, we will actually, I forgot something. You want to have Profit Rune on your Accurate champion, since we kind of went into there before. And that is because it's going to give you extra armor, and it's going to, once you take the first fatal damage, you're going to be revived. So that's like insane tankiness there. And I like to combine it with Indestructible. That way you are pretty much unkillable with these two things. Indestructible and Profit Rune. No way you can die, like, it's pretty hard to die. You can swap Indestructible for some damage dealing stuff if you want, but I like to have both. And now to damage dealing stuff. Condemn with Vacuum. This is going to, as you are watching the clip in the behind of this, it's going to pull enemies and then you are going to explode. So pull and then explode after 3 seconds. And to boost the damage for this, you really want to get this Crusader shield, so it's Frider's Rat, if I read that correctly, probably not, but yeah. For this, like the most important thing to look on this shield, like all the stats are cool, but if it doesn't roll the correct, like the secondary main thing, Condemn has no cooldown and has its damage increased by, and that by try to get as much as possible. So 800 is the max, try to get as close to that. And this shield is going to be insanely hard to get. I know I get everything else set up and then I just keep farming this shield until I get a good one in a season. That's usually what happens to me. And for the stats, you want to have you can get cooldown reduction here, you can then get increased condemn damage, it can also roll chance to deal area damage, and it can also roll pretty high crit chance. So any of these stats are good. If you get something else like strength or vitality, it's okay. Try to get then cooldown reduction if you still need it for 56%. If you happen to cap it with something else, then you can look for crit chance, you can look for area damage, totally up to you. But the most important thing, look at that number for increased damage on Condemn. If that doesn't roll, it can roll as, like, it can roll the best stats up there, but if it doesn't roll that 800% increased damage or close to 800, then it's garbage, basically. The second thing that we need is a Blade of Prophecy. You can use this one if you happen to get it first. You can use it to deal damage with, but ideally you want to have it in a cube because it's a bit faster weapon than Furnace, and you want a slow weapon, and the slowest weapon that you can get is a Furnace. But here's what this thing does. This thing is like really insane. It's going to again increase your condemn damage by either 600 to 800%. That's the same thing here. I think it goes from 600 to 800. So try to. That's why I like to have it in a cube, because then I get 800 guaranteed, basically. So this is going to say 2 condemned enemies also trigger Condemn's explosion, and the damage of Condemn is increased by 600 to 800. So it's going to like chain explosions of enemies. It's going to be insane, as you can see in the background watching me play a bit. And for a weapon, as I've said, Furnace, you want to get this later on, if you can. This can also roll cooldown reduction, it can roll area damage. You definitely want to try to get increased damage, and you also want to look at the base damage of the weapon. The higher the better. And yeah, like this has 1 attack per second, this one has 1.15. That's why we are going with the Furnace. And this pretty much, if you get to this point, your build is functional, but we need to go over other things for the build. So yeah, the next thing that you should probably get is Illusionary Boots. Illusionary Boots, I think. That was kind of reading ahead, I guess. So you can farm this in a second act by completing bounties, and that's the only item that you have to get off bounties, which is a good thing in my opinion. I hate doing bounties. Then you can get Hexing Pants. Those drop anywhere, I think. Then, like, for this, they are pretty generic. Try to get resistances, life regen, and strength vitality. It's pretty generic. They usually roll okay on a first try. As long as you get them, it's pretty good. Then for Hexing Pants, they're also pretty easy in terms of rolls. Strength, vitality, resistances, and you're good. For a belt, if you need cooldown reduction, this is the best belt that you can get, because it's the only belt that rolls 8% cooldown reduction. It can also roll resistances, vitality, increased life, strength is always nice, of course. And then we get into focus and restraint. These two things are really important to get because they work pretty nice. So when you hit with resource generating attack, or primary skill basically, you deal 50% increased damage for 5 seconds. So we're going to be hitting a bit with resource generating attacks. And when you hit with resource spending, which is our condemn, because this is going to, actually not, this is going to turn it into resource spending, because it's going to cost 40 Vrat now when you're wearing this. And when you spend some resource, it's going to increase your damage by another 50%, which is pretty good, of course. And that's kind of... oh no, we have a strong arm bracer. Since these bracers work, enemies that are knocked back, the damage on them is increased by 30%, and this is not only for you. If you're playing with someone in a party, they are also going to deal more damage to that enemy, which is pretty nice. So 30% more increased damage because of Condemn. Condemn is going to, well, not knock them back, but vacuum them towards you, and that is counted as a knockback, so this works. And you want to get holy damage on them. That's not that hard to get. You want to get crit chance, life per hit, and strength. That's ideal, but like I've been saying, as long as you get the item in the beginning, it's going to be a huge boost to you. Then for gems that drop from Greater Rifts, you wanna get Esoteric for some physical damage, non-physical damage reduction, and while below half-life, your resistances to cold, fire, lightning, poison, and arcane are increased by 75%, which is really good, in my opinion. That's going to make you even more tankier. And then this is, I think, for 90% of characters in Diablo, you want to have this one, and that's Bane of Stricken. That's going to help you kill Rift Guardians. So each attack you make against the enemy increases the damage it takes from your attacks by some amount, and gains 25% increased damage against bosses and Rift Guardians. Now if you're running some speed variant, you can swap it for something else, but if you are doing the rifts, then this is pushing the highest level rift. This is a must, so this game. And as the last one, Bane of Trapped. Increase damage against enemies under effect of control impairing effects by 62% if you level it to the max, and gains an aura that reduces the movement speed of enemies by 30% in radius of 15 yards, and since you basically this works by itself, since you're reducing the movement speed of the enemies, you are by default getting that bonus from the gem. So yeah, it works by itself. You don't need anything, any spell that reduces their movement speed. So we already went with this, you know what it does. The second thing that you should get from spells, actually that's the third thing I guess, is a Law of Valor. So this is going to, well, it's going to increase attack speed, but that's not that great for you actually, not important. It's going to be pretty nice for your party members probably, but you should get Unstoppable Force on it. That's why we are getting this, and this is going to give you again some more reduction of cost for your abilities, making it possible for you to spam Condemn. If not, you will have to do a bit of slashing, a bit more than you would want to, and yeah, so that's why we are getting Law of Valor. Then Provoke, this is going to be for wrath generation, so when you use this it's going to give you 30 wrath, and for additional enemies around you it's going to give you additional 5 wrath per enemy. And you want, of course you want to use this when there are a lot of enemies around you, so if you're running around and there are no enemies around you, then using this is not ideal, so try to get into a big pack of enemies and then use Provoke. And also taunted enemies have their attack speed reduced by 50% and movement speed by 80%, so this is another good thing. And even if this thing wasn't giving you increased damage by itself, it's going to work because you're going to slow them with this, but it works by itself, so don't worry about it. And Iron Skin for extra survivability. If you don't have enough cooldown reduction, this is a pro tip, I guess, if you can call it like that. Save your Iron Skin for when your Accurate Champion is going to be down. So as soon as this goes off, you pop this until the cooldown for this thing goes up. So it's a good thing you might not die, but you definitely want to have 56% of cooldown reduction. But if you don't have it, then do this trick. Do Iron Skin with increased duration, and then once the cooldown for this goes off, you pop it up, so that way you can survive. And for dealing, well, this doesn't deal much damage, it's kind of not important. We mainly take it for guard, for to gain increased armor for each hit. It stacks up 5 times, and so you want to be hitting everyone once in a while. If you're taking some damage, then this is a good way to kind of prevent even more damage. And yeah, so only thing that's kind of left is to go over these passives, and Heavenly Strength is pretty self-explanatory. We're using two-handed weapon and we want to use it with a shield, so we have to have this. Another thing, Holy Cause increases the damage dealt by weapons by 10%, and whenever you deal a holy damage, you heal for 1% of your total life. And since we are a holy damage build, this is no-brainer for us. Indestructible, I love to have this, but if you want to have something else, be my guest. And for the last one, Finery, this is the most insane passive in the game, I think. Like I said, I'm not playing too many different classes, but from what I've played, this thing, you don't change it. You put it on your Crusader and you never ever change this, because it's going to increase your strength by a lot. It increases your strength for every gem socketed in your gear. So you have a lot of gems that multiplies with that, then you have more strength from your Paragon's gear, and the more you go into Paragons, the more this is going to scale up your damage. So this is no-brainer for all the builds for the Crusader. You put that and forget about it, that you ever put it. And we already went over this, why you should have it, and Roric, the last slot. For this, because this is the season of Royal Grandeur, you can have something else here. But if this wasn't the season of Royal Grandeur, you would probably put Ring of Royal Grandeur here. So if you're watching this for season 17, put the ring there, probably. I'm not sure what's going to happen for season 17. But for season 16, Convention of Elements for extra damage is a really good choice. You can also go Unity and then give one Unity to your Templar, probably. And that's for solo. If you're going into a party, Convention of Elements for damage is probably the best choice. I think I covered everything that I wanted to in this video. However, if you have some questions, feel free to ask them. I will try to answer them as soon as I can. And if this video helped you guys, you know what to do. Subscribe to the channel, like the video and all that good stuff. And see you in the next one.